Well, hi, my name is Andy Tidy and welcome back to another Canal Hunter video. I'd like to introduce you to a series of old photos taken by a Mr. H.E. Evans. They're actually held in the Canal and River Trust's National Waterways Archive in Ellesmere Port. Now, I have to admit, not a lot is known about Mr. Evans, who cycled around the BCN extensively between 1961 and 1963. But he did leave behind him a legacy of nearly 1,000 stunning black and white images showing Birmingham and the Black Country as it used to be. He was clearly captivated by this melancholic network of canals which were at that time seemingly almost in terminal decline. You can almost feel his sense of desperation to record what he saw before it was too late. His photographic forays into the world of the BCN very closely coincides with the year of my birth, 1961. Yes, I know, I looked so much younger. And the backdrops to his images show an utterly different world, and they very neatly capture the changes which have occurred over the course of my lifetime. I therefore thought it would be interesting to follow in his footsteps over 60 years later, to try and capture a series of then and now images using the line of the canal as a reference point to get the exact locations. This exercise will result in a series of still images, but I thought it might be fun to let you come along with me and share the experience of gathering them. For the sake of giving this series a bit of a title, let's call it a lifetime, because it spans my life, and we're going to start with a lifetime on the Farmers Bridge flight. Now, whilst I do plan to stick exclusively to the Evans images for the then and nows, I'm going to draw on the extensive archive of old BCN images which are at my disposal to illustrate these videos. So instead of focusing on the lost 60 miles, which I've tended to do to date, these videos are going to be all about the changes which have been seen around the 100 miles which have survived. To kick us off, what better place to start than the centre of Birmingham, and more specifically the 13 locks of the Farmers Bridge flight. They drop down from Brindley Place here in central Birmingham down to the top of Aston Locks about 2 miles away. Along this stretch, Evans took about 30 photos. And that was all taken in 1963, so let's go and see the changes. I know from experience all the then and nows won't work out, but let's see what we can find. Now, to give you a little bit of context, the original Birmingham Canal stopped here at Deep Cutting Junction. It's right behind me there. It's outside the National Indoor Arena, or whatever it's called these days. Initially, they just couldn't decide where the canal should come to an end. And in the end, after much deliberation, they decided to create twin termini. One was out going that direction, which headed out into Gas Street Basin and to Old Wharf. That was primarily for the coal trade. The other branch is the one that I'm going to follow. It became the Newhall branch, and this followed the high ground as far as it would go. This branch was mostly used to access an industrial area, and it catered mostly for the non-coal trade. So now we've reached Cambrian Wharf and the stub remains of the old Newhall branch. There's absolutely nothing to be seen of this branch today, but indulge me when I insert a short photo stream of the old images which show how the Newhall branch used to look. I've also included some shots of the Gibson branch, which ran under now what is Baskerville House, through a lock and then into a basin which is now occupied by Birmingham's Centenary Square. From here, the canal company needed to access the outside world via the canals which were being built to the east. But to reach them, they needed to lose quite a lot of elevation. And this meant building a sizable flight of locks, starting here with the 13 at Farmers Bridge. These locks would drop the canal down its first 81 feet. And it's this flight which we're going to explore and follow in the footsteps of the worthy Mr. Evans. In total, the resulting Birmingham and Fazeley Canal would be 15 miles long and include 38 locks. The 13 here, 11 at Aston, 3 at Minworth and 11 at Curdworth. To achieve all this, they recruited John Smeaton as resident engineer, and he started work in April 1786, completing the job in August 1789. Well, to start off, I've been working my way around Cambrian Wharf, trying to follow in Mr. Evans' footprints. And of course, all of the surroundings have changed. A lot of people mourn the loss of the industrial backdrop to these locks. But time moves on and cities need to reinvent themselves to remain relevant. Actually, I quite like the urban redevelopment down here. And when it comes down to it, the surroundings of the BCN have been changing continually since the day that it was first dug. In spite of all of those changes, some fragments still remain. In Evans' time, Tyndall's Bridge was made of bricks. These days it's made of concrete, but it's nice to see that the old iron rope guards have been replaced in the right places and with the old grooves still showing. BCN also housed a lot of their workers in their own cottages, and there was a row of cottages which back on to Cambrian Wharf called Kingston Row. These contain BCN cottages 41 to 44. And then right at the very top lock, there are the old lock cottages number 44 and 45, one of which was home to the son of Chocolate Charlie. You have to savour these little bits when you can find them. Now, one of my first then and nows that I wanted to take was a close-up of the balance beam at the top of lock number 2. The balance beam obviously has been replaced many times since 1962, but we've also lost the D-bars at the end. What I also realise is to get the same view, I have to drop down nearly a foot. It would appear Mr. Evans wasn't anywhere near 6'3" tall. This extension to the Birmingham Canal was a success right from the get-go, and it very quickly became a bottleneck in spite of operating for 24 hours a day. Back in Evans' time, this section next to Lock 2 was still lined with old abandoned industry. And most interestingly, sticking out from the wall, there was the gantry for one of the old lights. You see, they used to illuminate the locks so that they could work them all through the night. The urban developers have kind of tried to be sympathetic to the old warehouses, and they've built the buildings behind me at about the same proportions, but of course none of the original bits remain. We've reached Lock 4 right beside Saturday Bridge. And given the rather precarious nature of canal work, it's probably quite fitting that today's Employment Office sits directly opposite. Of course, the new concrete bridge behind me isn't the original one, nor is the BCN maintenance yard, which used to exist on the far side of the canal. This has all long gone, but fortunately the name still lives on for those who understand what it means. As we carry on moving down the flight through locks 5 and 6 and then coming around here to lock 7, you can still see some old bits of industry popping out around in the backgrounds, but in the main everything is gone. In front of us we've got lock number 7, and immediately beyond it there was the old Envelope Cottage, another one of the BCN lock cottages. This one was called Envelope Cottage because they stored stationery in it from the works opposite. Now, in spite of illuminating these locks to allow them to be used for 24 hours a day, they then dug the Warwick Canal through to Camp Hill, and that joined the Digbeth branch. This made matters even worse, with more traffic trying to go up and down the hill. In the end, the Birmingham-Warwick Junction Canal, otherwise known as the Saltley Cut, and the Tame Valley Canals were built in 1844, and that took some of the pressure off these very overworked locks. These days, of course, you come down here like now, and there's not a boat in sight. You'll have noticed that as we came down these locks, there are quite a lot of little humpback bridges on the towpath side, and they're spanning the entrances to arms. These have pretty much all gone, all except for Whitmore's Arm. That lies between locks number 7 and number 8. So this is the entrance to the old Whitmore's Arm, and standing next to it, the Elkington building. This was a short arm that was started in 1808 off land leased from the Colmore family. This is the same Colmore family that gave its name to Colmore Row. You Brummies will know what I'm talking about. Initially it went as far as Caroline Street, but then it was extended to George Street in 1850, and then a bit further to get into some sandstone quarries beyond it. If you go searching around the back streets around here, you can still find some of the fire doors where the fire brigades used to drop their hoses to pick up the water to put out the fires during World War II. The last time this arm functioned in any meaningful way was when the Science Museum sat next to it. But that was relocated to Millennium Point 25 years ago, so all change again. The Farmers Bridge flight of locks has always felt like something of a canyon, and it still does. Where there used to be factories spanning the canal, these days there are towering apartments. And then buried right underneath Newhall Bridge, there is lock number 9, a gloomier place it's hard to imagine, possibly rivaling the top end of the Rochdale Canal in Manchester. Unfortunately, I can't do smell-o-vision on the video. However, I can promise you there is a faint odour of urine. You get the feeling that rough sleepers are down here most nights. But from here, locks 9 and locks 10 are truly subterranean. From the earliest days of radio and television, there have been transmitters here. You look at the early sites right next to the bottom end of the Farmers Bridge locks. There was a large pylon with transmitters on the top. Back in the 1960s, the BT Tower was built, which, contrary to popular belief, doesn't sit right on top of the canal, but it's not far off. As we reach lock number 11, we reach one of the BCN's oddities, something you probably could pass through here and not really notice. The bottom gate is hung on the wrong side of the canal, as in it's not on the towpath side. You've got to cross over the lock in order to work it. Apparently, in the days when the canal was built, there was a property built right alongside the canal here, which prevented them from putting on a balance beam. So, being pragmatic, they switched it over and they built it that way. And so it has remained for the following 250 years. So as you come down Farmers Bridge locks and you get towards the bottom, the old starts to shine through the new. The old warehouses still exist, some repurposed, some looking pretty abandoned. In terms of trying to recreate H.E. Evans photos, well, it's been a bit of a mixed bag, if I'm honest. I probably got more than I expected, but there were some shots which were irrevocably lost. Sadly, much of the antique hardware which used to adorn the canal, the light stands and the handle rails that used to go around the sides of the lock gates, they have all gone. Everything has been sort of cleansed and standardised. And I have now reached the bit of canal which stretches all the way from the bottom of the Farmers Bridge locks to the top of the Aston locks, and then bends around the corner on the start of the Digbeth branch. This collectively was known as the Hospital Pound. I guess there was a hospital near it. There certainly was a pumping engine which was used to recirculate the water back up to this level. For the sake of completeness, I'm taking a walk down to the top of the Aston flight of locks. That will mark a neat end to this section on the Farmers Bridge locks, and also as an introduction to my next video, which will follow again in the footprints, or possibly bicycle ruts, of H.E. Evans as he went exploring down towards what is now Spaghetti Junction. In the meantime, I've got to climb innumerable bridges which take the towpath over long lost basins. Well, that's it. I've reached the top of the Aston flight of locks. They are a whole different story, and I need to research some more of H.E. Evans' photos to go and see what he saw during the year of my birth. I guess you've probably figured out that I make these videos just for my own sake, and I have been delighted by just how many people enjoy coming along on these trips with me. So I really hope you enjoyed this one. I have thoroughly enjoyed the process of following H.E. Evans' photographic footsteps and trying to recreate some of his images. I hope I've done the man justice. But for now, thank you very much for watching. If you liked it, hit like, hit subscribe, and I will see you again soon. Cheerio.